Now, Daf Lamed Beis Amid Aleph, coming closer to the end of Bava Metzia. We're still talking about a lost item and how do you recognize if an item is lost. So we're continuing here. Mishnah, about 10 lines on top of the page. Matzah berefes, you found the animal out in a barn. Ein chayiba. You don't have to give it back to the owner. Now, what exactly does that mean? If it's in the barn, what's the problem? You might want to discuss it. If you found an animal loitering out in the Shusarabim, then chayiba. Then you have to give it back. It's a lost object. Hashavas aveda. What happens? V'im hoisa. What happens if it was bebeis hakvaris? If the lost item was in a cemetery, and you have to be a kohen, and a kohen, we learned already a couple of days ago, has an avera to go into cemetery, has a loisa said where it says the nefesh amalei tamei, you shouldn't become tamei. Plus, there's a mitzvah say kadeshim tiyu, and as Taisha said before, kadeshim tiyu is basically limited only to what's written in that parsha, which is that a kohen is not permitted to go to the cemetery. So what? But there's a mitzvah of a Shabbos aveda, lo yitamela, should not enter the cemetery because you're not allowed to be over an avera and go through the mitzvah. If the father told him, I want you to go into the cemetery, become tamei, so now you have sort of a double mitzvah, the mitzvah of kibbud of the aim and the mitzvah of Shabbos aveda. Nevertheless, you don't go into the cemetery. What happened? The father said to him, Al tachze. The father said, I don't want you to return this lost item. Not talking about to a kohen, talking to everybody. And so it doesn't matter if it's a kohen or not a kohen. I don't want you to do a Shabbos aveda. And the mitzvah of kibbud of aim versus the mitzvah of a Shabbos aveda. Lo yishamalei, don't listen to your father. Why not? We'll see the Gemara later. What about parak v'ton? What about this? Unloading or loading. Parak v'ton. You unloaded and then you have to load. Afila arba'ah v'chamisha pam chayiv. You loaded, the animal falls down again. You load down. No matter how many times you need your help, you're still chayiv. Remember, it says ozev tazev. There's no limit. I said before, the double wording or the first word ozev means as many times as you want. And tazev we darshan that even the guy is not with you, he's sick, he can't help. Holach v'yoshla. What about the guy is there but not he's sick or he can't help? But he said, you have a mitzvah. You go ahead and do the job. Potter, you are potter. Shenemar, it says ima. You got to work together. Unless the guy is infirm. But the obvious question is, you need what do you call it? We're going to bring a what do you call it? He sat down. He says you have a mitzvah. He tells him potter. The guy sitting there says, you do it. So then it says ima. You have to do it together. Now your obvious question is, I need a pasuk, and without the pasuk, I would have thought that this guy owns the animal, it's his animal. And I'm a passerby. I should be doing all the work, and he could sit there. Why would you even think that that's a pshat? And you need a pasuk imay. So the Mefarshim say that we're talking about over here something different. We're talking about the guy, the owner of the animal, cannot do it on his own. Cannot do it on his own. He needs help. You, the passerby, much younger, stronger, energetic, you can do it all on your own. So the guy says, look, I'm not much of a help because you can do it all on your own. So why do I have to mutchazich and go up and help you if you can do it on your own anyway? So the pasuk imoy, if the guy is able to help, even though he couldn't do it all on his own, but if he's able to help and he's the owner, he must roll up his sleeves and help out as well. If not, you don't have a chiyuv. What happened? Let's say the person, the passerby, is the zaken or chayla. What do you call it? If the guy, the owner, is a zaken or a chayla, then chayiv mechayiv mitzvah natoyda lifrik. Sorry, you still have to help out at all. The mitzvah is you have to unload, but not to load up. And the simple pshat is, as the Gemara will discuss, is what's the difference loading or unloading or loading. Unloading is you're also helping out the animal because tsar balachayim, the animal's in pain. Loading, the animal's not in pain at all. You're just helping out the owner. So therefore, there's a difference between the two. And Rab Shimon says afliton. Rab Shimon says, you also have to help out to load as well. And the Gemara will discuss whether we're talking about you can get paid for it, you cannot get paid for it. We'll see all in a minute. Rabbi Yisrael says, Im hoya olav yeser al masoy. Rabbi Yisrael says that if, let's say, the person, the owner, put on the animal way too much, as a result of that, the animal cannot cope. The name's up there to help out. The animal was able to walk and then something happened, okay. But if that guy's fault, then don't have to help out at all, which clearly means that basically holds there's no such thing as tzar balachayim. Because why is the animal's fault? The guy loaded the animal. Why shouldn't you help out? So that proves that tzar balachayim is not from the Torah, and we'll see in the Gemara. First of all, I said when we say over here that in a barn that you don't have to give it back to the owner, we're talking about you must say, on the one hand, that there's enough food inside the barn so the animal can stay there. Because if there's not enough grazing, if the animal graze inside the barn, then the animal will definitely run away to eat. So therefore, then there is a mitzvah shosaveda. On the other hand, you have to say that it's not properly guarded. Because if it's properly guarded, then what do you need to tell me? I don't have to give back to the owner. That is the owner's place. But it means probably there's no door. Let's say the door is not closed. It's easy to walk out, and yet I don't have to give it back because it's inside the barn. It must be that the animal doesn't necessarily have to go out. On the other hand, it's not totally guarded. But why would the Mishnah have to tell you that you're not chayib? No, we would have thought I am chayib because the Mishnah told me there's a door and it's closed, and the Mishnah tells you don't have to worry about giving it back to the owner if it's inside that closed pen. If I would have found it outside my we learned yesterday that you can just bring it back. You don't even have to notify, and that's good enough. If you found it inside, you have to tell me you don't have to do anything with it. That's not totally protected, and that's the chiddush. You don't have to give it back. Rabbi made a comment which we are going to try to analyze, understand what he's saying. He said that's provided that this particular barn is within the tchum, within the city limits. Says the Gemara, the klal sounds from here, but let's say you found them in a public thoroughfare, which you do have to give back to the owner. Then I feel about even though it's within the city limits, maybe it's lost, you have to give it back. Not michayv. That's one version of Rabbi Yitzchak. Ika the masla. Others say a sefer. His comment was on the sefer, where it says over in the Mishnah, B'Shasarabim chayba. You found the animal loitering in the streets, you have to return it. So he says, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, when do you have to return it? Only if it's found outside of the city limits. Meklal de berefes, but if it's in a barn, even if it's outside the city limits, you don't have to bother returning it. Even though there's no gate there and might walk out, you don't have to. Not chayiv. Two versions of understanding him. Okay, then we learned the basic kavaris le'itamla, that if you're a kohen and this object is inside basic kavaris, you don't have to be metame. We learned. And then we learned that if your father tells you, don't listen. If the father told you, I want you to go inside, I don't want you to return the lost object. How you know you shouldn't listen? As it says, a person should fear his parents as Ani Hashem. And then right after, in the same pasuk, it says, and you should also keep my Shabbos. What in the world does Shabbos have to do with fearing your parents? So we darshan. Kulchem chayovim b'kvoidi. Just like Shabbos, you have to observe because it's my Ani Hashem. Because my same thing is with your parents. If your parents tell you to mechal Shabbos, you don't listen. There's no mitzvah kirov aim because your parents are just much as obliged to listen to me as you are. So we dash time. So when I ask a question, time it seems the only reason is because you have the drasha, therefore don't listen to your parents. I would have thought, precisely, no, it sounds from here. Had it not been for this passage, we would have thought you should listen to your parents. Now, my why, hi asay v'hai lo yisasa v'asay, listening to your parents is mitzvah asay. And the Aveda involves a lo yisasa and an asay. V'lo osi asay v'doch. We have a rule that an asay cannot push away a lo yisasa and an asay. So why do I need a pasuk? Now Rashi says over here, and the simple reading the Gemara is, we're talking about Shabbos. If your parents tell you Mechal Shabbos, Shabbos has an asay, you have to observe Shabbos, and Zocher v'Shama, and you have to. There's a lois say, you're not doing any malacha. And the Gemara is asking, why you need a pasuk to tell me don't listen to your parents Mechal Shabbos? But because the Gemara is right here in Eila Metzias, we think the Gemara is also discussing the case in our Mishnah of Aveda. However, Rashi very clearly learns over here, the question is not on the first one where he tells the kohen go into the basic kvaris. The question is on the second case where he said don't return the lost object. And everybody wonders, why does Rashi, if the Gemara's question is on our Gemara here, then the Gemara's question is on both. If but we would have thought if your father tells you go into the cemetery, you should listen. But how can I say push away and not say listen? It's the same question. So there's a number of answers why it's not that we do need a pasuk to tell you if your father tells you to go into Beis HaKodesh, you're a kohen, go into Beis HaKodesh and return the item. You need a pasuk to tell you those are your father. And why is that? A couple of reasons. Number one is an asay cannot push away an asay in a license. But over here there are two asays. If your father told you to walk into the cemetery, you're a kohen, and return the object, there's an assay of kibbut of, there's an assay of a Shabbos Haveda, two assays, versus an assay in a loisisa. In that case, maybe the assay does push away. If you hold like the riva, which we talked about 2 days ago, that when you have an assay and a loisisa versus an assay, the assay will still push away the loisisa. It just won't push away the assay. And we have a rule, my mahaya say, how do you know which one to follow? But here, if you have two assays versus one assay, of course you follow two assays. That's the strength. So if your father would have told you to go to Beis HaKvados, we would have had to listen to your father, two assays versus the remaining assay. Therefore, you need a pasuk. So Rashi therefore says, the question was not on that. The question was when the guy said, don't return the lost object to the thing. So here, there's a what do you call it? An assay of Hashavas Aveda versus the assay of listening to your father. So of course you don't have to. You have an assay that tells you not to return it. Keep it up. You have an assay in a license that now walk into a cemetery. An assay in you have license by Aveda. No, you're not l'suchulis alim hashev tashev. In that case, there you don't need a pasuk to tell me I shouldn't listen. Of course, I have an assay. Listen, I got to return the lost object. Anyway, the other thing is, another answer is, okay, if you hold an assay cannot push away an assay in a license, what about in the case where the father said to the son, wait there until the guy is miyayish and then take it? We learned before that if you do that, you're only over the aver l'suchulis alim. You shouldn't close your eyes. There's only a license. In that case, the assay of listen to your father will push away the license of l'suchulis alim in that case, because there's no assay there. That's why you need a pasuk. Anyway, going back to the machlekes of the Riva and the Rabbi Yosef Tov Mirushalayim, from Kedushin of Lamadal, and tells you whether if you have an assay and a lois, a verse and assay, does the assay push away at least the lois or not? The argument can be explained as follows: the logic of assay doicha lois. Why doesn't assay push away lois? So based on the Ramban in Chumash and Yisrael, and based on some of the Rishonim in the Yevamos Davav, that is, an assay is stronger than a loisisa. If I tell you do something, that's how the Ramban explains it in Yisrael. If I tell you to do something and you listen to me, or I tell you don't do something and you listen to me, where do I get more nachas from? When you don't do something, you're passive. When you go out and do something proactively, you went out of your way to listen to what I said. So listening to is greater than listening to a loisisa. And that is why an assay pushes away a loisisa, because an assay is much more mitzvah. That's why it pushes away a loisisa. But another way of learning, which is based on Lishi in brachas, bahag, and that is that when, for example, tzitzis and climb. So how do you understand? I put tzitzis on, woolen tzitzis on a linen garment. Does that mean I did an aved, I'm wearing climb, but the mitzvah of tzitzis is a great mitzvah than the aved of climb, and that's why that's called the chuya. And then based on a traces and nazar there, or do we say that the Eibishter says when there is a mitzvah say wearing tzitzis, I remove completely the avera of climb? It's hutra. That where there's an assay and a loisa together, the loisa disappears. There is no loisa. So going back to a case where the assay is opposing an assay and a loisa together, if the word is, then what's the point of saying the loisa doesn't exist when there's no anyway? And that is why Rishon Tevin says that no, you still have the loisa and assay. The Riva says no. The idea is assay is stronger than loisa and can push it away. So even though there's a remaining assay, but it pushes away the loisa, and that's the argument here. How do we understand esa deicha loisa? Anyway, back to the Gemara. So you want to say something? I would have thought I would have thought since we equate the mitzvah. I would have thought that honoring your parents is such a strong mitzvah that maybe you should listen to your parents against the Eibishter, right? Since we equate honoring. Okay, so the Gemara says because we equate the mitzvah of kivud of the aim to the mitzvah of kabed Hashem mahincha to honor Hashem from your assets and everything, therefore we would have thought you should listen to your parents against even chashom against the Eibishter. Hilchach letzayis leish, listen to your parents. Kamash under leilish malay. That's why we need the pasuk of Shabsai Satishmar tell you do not listen to your parents. Now, Tosis and all the Rishonim ask, why do we bring the pasuk of Kabed as Hashem Mahincha? Why don't we bring the pasuk where it says in the Torah, Ish ima v'aviv tiro, and there's another pasuk where it says Es Hashem lekecha tira. and therefore we would think you equate the two. And why bring a pasuk from Kabbalah, which is from the Nevi'im, rather than a pasuk in the Torah? And Torah says because we want to bring a pasuk of covet. Now, the difficulty with Torah's question is you can't make up your own Gzera Shabbos because it says in one pasuk Ish Ima V'Avaturo, and another pasuk says you should fear Hashem. Why would you think they're on the same plane? Because Gzera Shabbos, we can't make up our own Gzera Shabbos, so they have a difficulty with Torah's question. But apart from that, the Rishonim say a very interesting thing. The Rishonim say we have two mitzvahs: to honor your parents and to fear your parents. And they say that the main mitzvah is actually kabbalah, to honor your parents. And as the Tosha Rosh adds, because it says in the Aseret Dibros, nowhere in the Aseret Dibros it say fear your parents. It says you should honor and respect your parents. So therefore, the mitzvah of kibbud av aim is greater, they say, than the mitzvah of fearing your parents. And that's why we didn't want to bring the pasuk of Ish Imay V'Avaturo. We want to bring the pasuk kabbalah Zabicha V'Shemecha. Interesting. The chinuch learns that the whole mitzvah of kibbud av aim is to teach us why is it on the right side of the Aseret Dibros when you have the five on the right side is ben adam la'makom, Hashem, and the left side ben adam l'chaverei, and the very bottom of the right side is kabbalah Zabicha. That belongs in the left side. So the chinuch learns, not that he asks this question, I'm just putting some words in his thing there, but he learns that the mitzvah of kibbud av aim is a direct extension of the mitzvah of honoring Hashem. If we learn to appreciate the largesse of our parents for providing for us, that will teach us also that we should have honor for Hashem and love Hashem because He provides for us. So therefore, it's part of the mitzvah bein adam la'makom, just as a manifestation in a gashmis dika way. Very interesting. Anyway, the Rishonim also ask, even if it's equal to Hashem, but why would you think you listen to your parents rather than to Hashem? So they want to learn that the question was that it's equal to Hashem, so the child should have a choice. Well, I can listen to Hashem, I can listen to my parents because they're both equal. And the pasuk says, don't listen to them. Anyway, thinking about it further, my abalolita, and it says in the Mishnah, you have to be pyrik unload, but you don't have to load. What do you mean you have to unload? You don't have to unload at all. If the guy is infirm, right? The guy is sick, can't help. So he said there's a mitzvah in the Torah to unload, but there's no mitzvah to load. Why not? The Torah says you do both. The Torah says it says in the pasuk what you should help the guy out, and to economics you're talking about, but also it says to load up as well. What's the difference? You tell me that the guy is sick and can't help out, unload, but you don't have to load. So Gemara says, there's a mitzvah in the Torah to unload for nothing, and v'loy litin bechinam, but to load, there's no mitzvah to do it for nothing. You can charge for your time. Ela b'schar, you can get charged for your time. Rav Shimon says, "Af litan bechinam." No, you don't do mitzvahs for money. You can do both for free. Tanina lahar. We'll come back to this. What the halach is. Tanina lahar. We learned. Don't know when we learn prika bechinam. It says in the Brayse take prika. You don't charge. Teina you charge. Rav Shimon says zu bechinam. That you both of them you have to do for nothing. It's a mitzvah. My tamai the rabbanon. What's the logic of the rabbanon? That prika you do not charge and teina you do. If Rab Shimon is right that both have to be done for free, then lichter rachmanatin. Let the Torah only say that you have to load up the animal. If the Torah tells me to load up the animal because it's a mitzvah, surely we know that unloading the animal is definitely a mitzvah because it's also tzar balachayim involved. But like by prika, I don't have to tell me that you unload. I mean, I would say, tina the lesbot tzar balachayim. Tina, there's no pain to the animal, and there's no loss. Yet chayiv prika, the the animal's loaded up and he can't bear it, so there's pain for the animal. And plus the animal's getting weaker, so the animal's actually being hurt. But surely you have a mitzvah to remove it. So why does the Torah spell both out? Because they're different. Unloading, you do for nothing, and loading, you get paid for. But Rab Shimon says, no, my time, Rab Shimon says if the Torah only written one, even though it says in the pasuk the animal that fell on the road, it's not necessarily te'ina. You think that animal on the road means that the goods are on the road, the animal's on the road, so it's a question of lifting the animal, lifting the goods, and loading the goods. No, I'm loading the animal's on the road, but the goods are still on top of him, the animal's in pain. So if I have a choice, I would say, if there's only one pasuk in Torah, I would automatically assume it's talking about prika, removing it. Therefore, the Torah to write both psukim, but really, both of them you don't charge because it's a mitzvah. Says the Gemara, Over here, it says the animals cannot bear the burden. It's burdened down. It's weighed down by its burden. So this is Rabbanan say. It says in the passage neiflim baderech. So they touch the ramu ina v'tunai bucha. They're both lying on the road. So all you have to do is load up. That's how the Rabbanan understood. But Rab Shimon neiflim baderech. That neiflim baderech means inu v'tunayu alaya. It means the animals on the road, but the goods are still on top of the animals. So it's what you're doing is unloading. If you only say one pasuk, that's how you interpret it. Mashma. Rabba says Rabba. But one thing I can definitely include. Medivrish Neimim was clear from both of them that Tsar Balachayim is the rice. They both agree that the animals in pain is from the Torah. They're only arguing about the meaning of the pasuk, but everyone agrees because I feel that Shimon will come and the only reason Shimon argued about it is because the pasuk is not clear. Let's say Shimon would concede that it was clear in the pasuk, then all the Torah had to tell us was loading, and I would automatically know unloading. Why would you automatically know unloading? Because it's pain to the animal. That means the Torah recognizes that Tsar Balachayim is awesome. Aber Messiah Makra, the Darshin, we darshin the Kabbalah. Mishumai, why is that? Why is Prika any more reason to help out than Teina? La Mishum Tsar Balachayim, because we're worried about the animal's pain. That's not necessarily conclusive because there's another fact that we mentioned before. When the animal is weighed down by its burden, the animal gets weaker and so on, and therefore there's a monetary loss to the owner. And maybe that's shot of here. Maybe because there's monetary loss, and that's what biting. There's no monetary loss, it's just lying there. But prika, there's a monetary loss because the animal's being weighed down and it's being hurt. So therefore, that's why prika is automatic. Don't do it with tzabal chaim. Maybe tzabal chaim is only from the rabbis. So and this is what the Kabbalah would have been. Umatina, the lesbian kid, there's no loss to the owner. You have to help out. Prika, unloading these kids, surely. Says the Gemara, if you tell me loading up, there's no monetary loss. What do you mean? The animal, he has to take the goods to the market and he can't get there, so he's going to lose money. Are we talking about that the haki bottle mashuke? That maybe meanwhile there's a monetary loss, or inami is lying there, it's exposed, anybody can come and steal it. So therefore, that's what's bothering him. And therefore, not necessarily a proof that Tzar Baal Chaim is the Raisa. Rav, on the other hand, holds that Tzar Baal Chaim is the Raisa, and this is his proof. And he's not worried about Chsaron Kis because this is not a real Chsaron Kis. What's a Chsaron Kis? That maybe he can go to the market and make money. That's called Mnias HaRevach. There's a big difference between a Hefsid and Mnias HaRevach. Hefsid means that you're losing money. Mnias HaRevach is I could have made a profit, and I'm not making a profit. That's not tantamount to a loss. A potential is not real. And therefore, but a loss is real. And my uncle tells me that there's a very wealthy man sitting, a very wealthy philanthropist in London. He was once sitting there. He invited my uncle to come to a board meeting he had. He had a lot of companies, very wealthy man, big corporation. And he had all these, a team of accountants, and he asked them, tell me, what is the difference between an asset and a liability? And each one, said how it is, different asset and liability. And he said, you're all wrong. He said, a liability is real. An asset has to yet be realized. Mnias HaRevach is not real yet. Could have happened. But a loss is real. So therefore, Rava says, to me, there's only one reason why Prika would be more obvious than Tina, because of Tzar Baal Chaim. Says further, Rava said, I'll prove it to you that Tzar Baal Chaim is real. It's a Mahatorah. The Tzar Baal Chaim that I said, Tony Sefer says later on, in our mission said, regularly says, Im Hoya Olav Yesam, if a Chatzchil the owner pulls too many things on top of the donkey, you don't have to help out. It says, Tachas Masoi. Masoi Shiach, a weight that the animal could have taken. He's arguing. So according to Tanakama, even if the animal's overloaded, you have a mitzvah of removing it. Basically, clearly holds, I don't care if the animal's in pain. In fact, it's more pain because the owner put too much. Too bad. So the Tanakama argues and says, even if the owner put too much, you have to help out. Obviously, he holds that pain of an animal is important, is significant. Lab Mikal Tanakama Saber, Zoku Gloi. Now you do have to help out. My time of why. Lab Mishum, Sablachim did I say. Says the Gemara, nope. I can argue that Tzar Baal Chaim is the Rabbanon, and you're right that they argue according to Tanakama, even if there's too much placed on the animal, you have to remove it. According to you don't have to. But they're not arguing in Tzar Baal Chaim, they're arguing in Exeris HaKasav. How do we understand the pasuk? And that is, they're arguing, how do you understand the words Tachas Masoi? And that is Rabbi Yossi Saba Dashina Tachas Masoi Shiyochalam. It says Tach Masoi means a burden that he could have. Only if you put it, a normal amount, and then he couldn't carry it, so then you have to help out. But if you overdid it, then too bad. And the Rabban hold Loi Dashin Tachas Masoi. We don't dash, and we're not so particular that has to be exactly, a burden that he could have carried. So because Masoi means any bundles that he has placed on him. Doesn't matter the quantity. And I'll prove to you on the other hand. I'll prove to you Sabachaim Lav the rice. The guy sits down and says, look, folds his arms, the owner of the animal, you go do it. I'm not doing it. You have a mitzvah break. And the Mishnah says potter. Why? Because it says imay. But if Tzabal Chaim Deraisa, the animal has to suffer because the owner is a shmendrik. The Salkadata Tzabal Chaim Deraisa, Mali Isil Bahade, Mali Kalesel Morahade. What's the difference if the owner participates, the owner doesn't participate? Doesn't that prove that Tzabal Chaim Derabban? Because if Tzabal Chaim Deraisa and the owner folds his arms, what do you mean I don't have to unload the animal? But meanwhile, Tzabal Chaim, I got to help out. Second one, no proof. Lo'ilam Tzabal Chaim Deraisa. Me, Sovet Potter, do you think that we're saying that this guy is Potter? Me, you don't have to know. Potter Legamri. You think we meant Potter Legamri? The Dilma Potter Bechina Bechai Bechai. You know what it means? It means that in this case, if the owner is sitting there and folds his arms like you do it, you have a mitzvah, you have a right to charge for that mitzvah. Normally, you don't charge for mitzvahs. But here you have a right to charge. Sabal Chaim is a mitzvah that I said, and the mitzvah you got to take it off. But if we penalize this person sitting there and we say to him, you know what, you're going to have to help out. Says the Gemara, this is what Taylor says. If that guy rolls up his sleeves and helps you out, then you have a mitzvah, you're not allowed to charge for a mitzvah. But if the owner is not helping out, then of course you still have to unload the animal. But you have every right to charge money for it. So now we're going to bring different proofs. The Raisa, the Rabbanon, which one is it? Rava clearly learns that Tzar Bal Chaim is Matayda, and in our Mishnah, Rabbi Yisrael Glili clearly says that if the animal has too many packages on it, you don't have to have out. Whole Tzar Bal Chaim is not Matayda. Says the Gemara, Leima Misayela. Let's bring a proof to support Rava that said Tzar Bal Chaim the Raisa. Behem of Yechavim Metapabag. So it says that Behem of a goy you have to help out, just like Behem of a Yid. Now why? Why do you have to help out? There's no Hashavas Haveda by Goy. In fact, he said you shouldn't give it back. So yeah, we're doing it for the sake of the animal. That's why you deal with it like a Yiddish animal. You didn't tell me it's not my Torah. Why do you have to help out? Says the Gemara, a very important concept. That if we live in a society with other people, we need to be a good citizen, an upstanding citizen. We make we tolerate all kinds of things and make all kinds of allowances. And we don't want to create any enmity between us and our neighbors. We don't want to create hate. If they see that we only help out each other and we don't help out, let's say, non-Jews, it creates a neighbor. And therefore, we have to help out as well. And in fact, I'll prove it to you. The Tani, I'll prove it to you that has nothing to do with Tzabal Chaim, but rather Eva. It says, but if the animal, say, was carrying wine, and wine is Stam Yainam, is Osir Bahano, then Osir, you're not allowed to help out. Also, yain also wine that's wine that's forbidden. Ain't zokuklo. Then you don't have to help out. Now, if you tell me that Sabal Chaim is not Matayda, the only reason why we're doing it is to help the guy out to be a good neighbor, then I can understand. But let's say yain nesef stam yainam, it's also no, you shouldn't help out. But if Sabal Chaim Deraisa, what's the nafkamina to the animal? What the animal is carrying? It's in pain. You should unload it. So if it makes sense, why we say, you know what, you don't have to help out. If you tell me what, it's mahatoida. Why if it's able, I can come up with an excuse. You'd be smart enough. If the halach is you cannot help out, come and go, oh, my hands hurt. Come up with some kind of excuse why you can't help out. But if it's mahatoida, there's no excuses. You have to help out. Why? Who cares if it's stam yenim on the animal? The Gemara says no raya. We're not talking about unloading. Unloading. You thought that we're talking about unloading here, and therefore you involve the idea of tzabal chaim. No, we are talking about loading. There's no tzabal chaim here, and therefore say because of Ava, you should help the guy out. But and it's whatever it is. But if it's stam yenam, then you don't have to help out in that case. So really, Tzabal Chaim is the Raisa. I'm going to say like this: Tzabal Chaim has nothing to do with Abel. Tzabal Chaim is the Raisa, and therefore to remove, you always remove. But here we're talking about loading. There's no Tzabal Chaim involved over here, and therefore, the mitzvah to help out to load up, and because of Abel and all that. But to place Yain also with the no Tzabal Chaim, then come up and choose why you can't help out. Says the Gemara, no raya one way. Toshma coming here. Another Braisa. What happened? The behemoth belongs to a yid, but a Masay Yisrael. The bundle on top belonged to. Sorry, the behemoth belongs to a goy, and the bundle on top belonged to a yid. The chadalta, and it says that you want to avoid. You should not avoid helping out, but also tazav imay. And we dash in the chadalta, we put a stop there. That sometimes, yes, you don't have to help out. Sometimes, like we had before. Same over there. Sometimes chadalta, sometimes you do not help, sometimes you do. Now, so it says if the behemoth belongs to a guy and the master belongs to the yid, you don't have to help out. The chadalta, you can walk away because the animals are guy's animal. But if it's tzabalachaim, who cares who the owner of the animal is? The animal is still tzabalachaim. The yamit tzabalachaim that I said, my chadalta. Why do you think I walk away from him? You should help out because it's tzabalachaim. So what if the owner of the animal is a guy? Says and again, Hasam Betini, we're not talking about unloading, we're talking about loading. So there's no Tsar Balachaim in this case. There's no Tsar Balachaim in this case. The problem is, and we'll ask soon, this very pasuk where it says the Chadalta, it says the Reivetz Tachas Masoi. And Reivetz Tachas Masoi means it's standing up, but it's fully loaded, and you need help to remove some of the things. So how can the say we're talking here about loading when it's actually talking about unloading? We'll see in a minute. So there is Tzabal See, so she told me about the Tzabal Chaim is the rice, and the reason why you don't have to help if it's a goyish animal to live, even though the bundle belong to Yid, but the animals are goy, you don't have to help because of you can come up with an excuse. It's not Tzabal Chaim involved at all. Look at the next case. What about the behemoth belongs to a Yid and the masa belongs to a goy? The other tazav you have to help out because the animal belongs to the yid. The ibit if you're talking about loading up, amai other tazav. Why do you have to help out? But you're really mainly helping for the goods, and the goods belong to a guy. Why do you have to help out? Says the Gemara, mishum tzara d'Yisrael. The owner of the animal has pain, and the pain is that the animal can't move. He wants to take the animal, go forward, he can't. And there's an inyan to help out a yid from having tsar. Now, what exactly mitzvah is it here? We're not talking about that lifting. We're not worried about the animal now because there's no tzabal chayim lifting. We don't care about the goods because they belong to a guy. We don't want a Jew to be in tsar. Would probably fall under avas Yisrael. That if you see a Jew in pain, you need to help out. So, if you're telling me because tzara Yisrael is affiliation nami, so the in the reisha as well, you're telling me where the animal belongs to a guy, but the belongings belong to a yid. You don't have to help out, but why not? The yid, the owner of the goods, isn't tsar. He wants the goods to move forward. So we say, Reisha b'chamar, and the yid is standing and watching, and he sees his goods on the floor. He's standing there in pain. What's the difference if it's the animal that's not moving or his goods are not moving? Both of them, the owner's there, is in pain. So no, that the owner of the animal is the one that's there. So in the case where the owner of the animal is a goy and the yid owns the belongings, the yid is probably not there. He paid the guy, please freight my goods to that marketplace. So there's no tsar for the yid who has no idea what's going on. That's why you don't have to help out. Where the person is actually leading the donkey is a goy, and the owner of the goods, the yid, is not there. And therefore there's no tsar for the owner. Of the good, says the Gemara, and safer b'chama Yisrael, the safer of the animals, the yid, and the owner is the yid. And that's why he's standing there. He sees the animal on the ground. He's a tsar. Help out. So anyway, my posture, why did you decide this case the one is leading is a goy, and the one leading is a yid? So when I answer, because generally speaking, who leads the animal? The owner of the animal. Therefore, the donkey belongs to a goy. The owner of the goy, the owner of the animal, the goy is leading it. The owner of the yid, is leading it. So the Gemara, but you said before, we're talking about loading, but the word v'chadalta and the other tazav and the word other tazav you should need to help out is pretty good. He's in the passage where it says the reivetz tachas masoi. Amalei, he answered, Hamani Rabbi Yisrael. I'll tell you what, you're right. But the author of that particular brayso is Rabbi Yisrael, we already established, does not believe in tzabal chayim. Rava's whole opinion of tzabal chayim matoida is according to the Chachamim Tanakama. But you're right. Rabbi Yisrael says that the animals are overloaded, you don't have to help out. Doesn't believe in tzabal chayim at all. Okay, that's how we resolve that. Toshma coming here. Oyhev, a fascinating halacha. Oyhev lifreik, you have two people standing there. One animal is overloaded, needs to be unloaded. The other animal is lying on the ground, needs to be loaded up. Who should you help out? So they say like this. Because the pasuk says, Kisila chamor senacha, even if it's your enemy, you should help out. So the mission is as follows. Oyev lifroik, you have a friend who has an animal there that is overloaded, and you have l'cheda to remove the goods, unload, and you have your enemy, the enemy standing there needs help to support. Now, l'cheda, you would think we should unload because tzabalachaim is mitzvah b'soina, help out your enemy. And why should you help out your enemy? Today, lokaif es yitzray. In order to suppress Yetzirah, your natural inclination is to help out your friend. No, break your spirit. No, you shouldn't hate somebody, and therefore help out your enemy. Now, l'chayda ha'maisim with your enemy and friend. Let's look at the animal. These go to the animal and unload the animal first. Who cares? Friend, enemy, that proves nothing. You know why? Because even though it's taka important and there's a mitzvah also to load up, there's two mitzvahs there. Suppressing Yetzirah has together with the tina, those two together is stronger, overrides the tzabalachaim, which is for the animal. Now, all the Rishonim ask, the Gemara clearly says in Arab Psachim that we're talking about an enemy that the Torah says you should hate him. A person who commits a sin, the Torah says you're allowed to hate him. So if the Torah acknowledges that this person is a son, not an enemy that you made an enemy that Torah says this is an enemy. So why is why Bechal Lakav is Yitzray? There are all kinds of answers, but really the best answer is what it says in Tanya. In Tanya, in Perlam Beis, it says that even where the Torah says that you're allowed to hate this person, it's a mitzvah to hate this person. So it says in Tanya, it's a mitzvah to hate the evil side of the person, but you still have to love the good side of the person because you have a neshama, and we all have a neshama which is part of Hashem, so we're all part of each other. So it doesn't mean hate the person in totality; it means hate the ra in that person. So therefore, then the Gemara here makes perfect sense. Even though on the one hand, this is the person the Torah acknowledges is a mitzvah to hate, yet the Torah says "Kidei Lakav Yitzray," and in fact, this is mamish lakav Yitzray because it's not so easy. On the one hand, you have to hate part of this person. On the other hand, you have to love part of this person. That's not an easy thing to do. But here's how you break yourself: that even though the Torah tells me to hate part of this person, I still have to love this person as a fellow Jew, Avos Yisrael. Therefore, lakav Yitzray over here is more important than the tzar balachai. As a result of this, by the way, I'm just making my chayk in a shame how far we take all this tzar balachai. But the Radvaz writes that even though we hold tzar balachai is the raisa, there's no mitzvah in the Torah. Which of the 613 mitzvahs is tzar balachayim? So he says it's not an asay. Interesting concept. He says it's not a mitzvah asay. It's based on a rush and all that. It's not a mitzvah asay. It's not a negative mitzvah. It's a mitzvah in the Torah. We have a concept. We have a few Gemara says it's an asay, and we ask where is it written, and we say it's only the Rabbanan. But here it's mahat Torah, and yet where? Where is it in the Torah? Which mitzvah is it? Where does it fall under? Even doesn't fall under. Where does it fall under? Doesn't want anywhere, and yet it's considered mahatayra. And because otherwise, lakav is Yisrael to override a mitzvah that's a say in the Torah. How can you do that? Unless it's a kind of a mitzvah which is in the Torah but not really clear. The Pnei Shuan is never trying to understand what exactly is tzar balachayim da'araisa. But one other thing is, even though tzar balachayim is da'araisa, but if you have direct benefit from the animal, then people come first. And therefore, we discount the tzar balachayim, and as long as you have direct benefit from it, but not if you don't have direct benefit from it. And that's why poskim hold you're allowed to charge money, let's say, for helping out. Why are you allowed to charge money for helping out? Because this is different than all other mitzvahs. It's not mefurish in the Torah as a mitzvah, even though it's a mitzvah from the Torah. Toshma, coming here. When we say a Saina, you have to help out. We're talking about a Jewish enemy. It's a continuation of what we said before. It says in the pasuk, it's only a Jewish enemy, but not a Goyish enemy. Now, a Goyish enemy, you don't have to help out. What do you mean? If who cares who the enemy is? You got to unload. Says the Gemara, who said we're talking about Saina de Krokai? Who said we're talking about a sign of the pasuk? A sign of Masisikai. It's talking about the previous mission. You have a friend who needs to be unloaded, and you have an enemy to load up, and it says over there you have to help your enemy out first. It says the Brisa here. That's only talking about an enemy a yid, but if it's an enemy a goy, then go ahead and unload the animal because mitzvah tzabal is more important, and the guy would understand as well. So there's no Ava here. Toshma, coming here, it says Roiveit, that it says that the animal happens to fall underneath his weight. The loy ravtzam. But if this animal continuously is lazy and always lies down on whatever it is, or is always falling under his weight, then you don't have to help out. If it's lying down, the loy oimetachas masoi. Actually, this is a new Gemara. We'll continue this tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem. We'll continue this tomorrow at 8:00.
Okay.
Okay.
How does it work if you're driving down the freeway and you see a Glix truck that's overloaded and the things are coming off and he needs help to put it back on? Is there a mitzvah then to stop on the freeway to help him put things back on?
That falls under prika, but the argument in halacha is whether you can charge for your time.
Yeah.
Whether you can charge for your time. And the Rosh says that you can. The Rosh holds that the only time. Okay, I'll just quickly tell you. The Rosh holds that the only time we say that you do it for nothing is if you weren't doing anything anyway. You're unemployed, you're not doing anything anyway. But if you have to leave your work, you're going to work or something, and you want me to stop what I'm doing in order to help you out, I can charge you for it. And even though generally mitzvah is not allowed to charge, because it's a mitzvah that told you that Bava says it's a mitzvah in the Torah, but not clearly written, then you can't. But if they look, and why? Because your money, as we had before a few days ago, your money always comes first. That's the view of the Rosh. Others disagree, and they say there's no difference whether you are taking off time or not. There's a mitzvah to help out.
So you'd have to pull over. Whether you get paid or not, you'd have to pull over.
And pull over and say, I'm ready to help, but I charge $50 an hour, and let's talk about it. Otherwise, if they refuse, you don't have to lose money to help someone else out.
Mm.
Okay, that's how the Rosh. Others disagree. That's Ramah, but Yosef argues in Shulchan Aruch. So it's an interesting argument. Interesting case.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway,
thank you.
Have a good day.